Hello, I'm Matt Singer. I'm the arts and culture editor at Willamette Week, and my guest today is Jason Quick. He is a journalist who covered the Blazers for the Oregonian for many years, and now does so nationally for The Athletic. Jason, thank you so much for talking to me today in the midst of what I'm sure is a lot of playoff prep.
Yeah, but it's nice to have something to cover and something to talk about when it comes to basketball.
Right. So obviously there's a ton to talk about with regards to the Blazers, but I wanted to ask you, so we just got through, the first half of this bubble experiment in the NBA, and as much of an adjustment as it, must have been for the players or for the people who are actually in the bubble, it's affecting the entire NBA universe, including the people who cover the teams. So I'm wondering what it's been like for you and what adjustments you've had to make to covering a team that you can't actually physically access.
Well, I always hate to make it about me, but it has been incredibly difficult to cover a team from 3,000 miles away. I mean, after the game, we have Zoom conferences with the coach and the players, and there's upwards of 30 people on each Zoom call, and sometimes you only get one question per interview session. So it's really hard to develop a thread and to identify an angle and then pursue it and execute it, because everyone's going in all these different directions. And then, I tend to try to write from more of the human aspect and the emotional aspect. And it's really hard to get those types of stories when you can't see everything that's going on behind the scenes. And like I said, you can't have that in-depth one-on-one. So it's been a challenge, but again, I don't like to complain about my job. Nobody wants to hear about that. I'm just thankful I have something to cover right now.
You mentioned that you've covered Dame since his arrival in the league, and obviously he's the talk of the league right now. Can you talk a little bit about how different he is as a player to cover as opposed to other Blazers who have that you've also covered? Because he seems like he's as different off the court as he is on, if that makes sense.
He really is. He's really something special, and I'm always struggling to find ways to describe him and to relay to people just how unique he is. But first, on the surface level, he is a superstar. He's probably, he's entering that realm of the biggest superstar that the Blazers have had. And I think right now, after what he's done in Orlando, he is going to go down as the greatest Blazer of all time. But beyond that, there is a realness to him that is, it's really profound. And especially when you spend, a lot of time with him and you talk to him and you see the way he interacts with people when there's no cameras around and it's not for show. This guy is incredibly authentic, and he can be very straight with you. If you cross him, or if he feels like he's not being treated right, he will let you know instantly. And but he also is so well intentioned, and I think the really cool thing about him being a superstar is that he is as concerned, if not more concerned, about his teammates and about winning and about doing it the right way. And that is really unique in professional sports, because there's a ton of ego in every sport. And you need to have ego to reach that level of athletics. You have to have self-belief, but a lot of times it gets in the way of a lot of athletes. And with Dame, it doesn't, because he wants to win and he wants to see those people around him succeed. So there's just a real authenticity and a real realness about him.
You mentioned that he is entering this sort of rarefied air of a true NBA superstar, and
Yeah.
it seems like he takes closer steps to that every season. And certainly, what he did in the bubble has got him even closer to being a nationally recognized superstar. But it seems like every year when that happens, there's this narrative that grows of like, well, if he's going to truly get the credit he deserves as a superstar, either the Blazers need to become a legitimate championship contender or he needs to go to a bigger market. And obviously he does a ton of work, shutting those down. He is very vocal about how he wants to, stay with this organization for the long haul. But what's your sense of when something like what happened in the bubble happens, and regardless of what happens, in these playoffs, what is your sense of how much pressure that puts on the organization to not blow this?
I don't think it changes it at all. I mean, I think the organization is always has a heightened awareness to win and to win now. I mean, this is 7 straight playoff appearances they've qualified for now. So, and they have the most expensive roster in the league. So it's not like they're trying. They may have had some hits and misses along the way, but I don't feel like there's any added pressure on them to, accomplish this in the next 2 years. I still think it's always been pedal to the metal. Let's try to win and try to win now.
I know you're not, you write more from the human perspective of the Blazers, but to ask more of a basketball question, what the hell is going on with these third quarters? what do you sense is, why is it so, it's like clockwork basically, that like you shouldn't really watch a Blazers game until the fourth quarter, really?
Well, I think that is a byproduct of a larger problem, which is the defense. I think this team has a devil of a time stopping people, and it's really it's frustrating. I think probably as a fan, and I know just from a person who has to look at this team analytically, you're just like, this team shouldn't win because they're so bad defensively. And I think that's what happens in the third quarters. They can't stop people, and eventually it comes in and bites them. But that's going to be a question they're going to have to answer in the offseason. Like, can Stotts coach defense? Does he need to add somebody to his staff that can coach defense? Or do they need to really make a push and bring in better defensive players? And I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer to one of those. I think it's probably a little bit of a combination of that, but that's the way it's been. I mean, Stotts has had a couple, and the Blazers have had a couple of years where they've been good at defense, but as a whole, during his 8-year tenure, the Blazers have won with offense, and just hope they can get enough timely stops down the end. And that's what's been happening lately. Is it's just helter skelter the whole game, and then you hope for a couple big stops at the end.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think happens in this first round series against the Lakers? It's going to be interesting regardless, because you have Dame's continued ascent. You have Melo versus Braun for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But how much noise do you think the Blazers can actually make in this series if you were a betting man?
I think they're a threat. I really do, because one, the Lakers don't really have anybody to defend Dame and CJ. Two best defensive guards, Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley, are not with the team right now. And the Lakers look terrible on offense in Orlando. They couldn't hit threes and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how they defend LeBron. They don't really have a person to match up defensively with LeBron. And then Anthony Davis, 2 years ago in that playoff series with New Orleans, just dominated Nurk and Collins and everybody the Blazers put on him. So this is where Stotts is going to earn his money, is devising a game plan to slow one of them. And I have a sense that they're going to try to double team Anthony Davis and make LeBron beat them from the outside. I mean, LeBron is the best player in the league, but if there's a weakness, it's, he's not a great outside shooter. So I think they'll probably try to have him beat the Blazers with his jump shot. And if he can't hit those jump shots, and if the players around him aren't hitting their threes, and that's the opening that the Blazers will use.